So with iOS 18.1 officially releasing to the public yesterday, a lot of people are finally getting the chance to try out Apple's AI, Apple Intelligence. And if you get a chance to try it for yourself, one of the first things you might notice is it's not really as smart as the other AIs on the market, like ChatGPT or any of the other big ones out there. I'm going to explain to you why that's not only very intentional, but probably a really good thing for you. You're going to learn a lot about privacy and AI in this video, so buckle up. The very important thing you need to first understand is what Apple's AI is trying to be. It's not trying to be this all-knowing thing. It's supposed to be a very application-specific AI, specifically built for doing things like summarizing text messages on your device, rewriting text, or suggesting changes for text. It is not meant to be an all-knowing AI that knows the answer to everything like ChatGPT, and they did that for a very specific reason. So to be even remotely competitive as an all-knowing AI, you need to be constantly training your AI with so much data from all over the internet from all sorts of different sources. Not only that, you need to be ingesting and training on the data that your users are feeding into it. So every time you make a request to ChatGPT or one of those similar AIs, those requests are being used to train the model. This means the AI is constantly learning, it's constantly staying up to date with new events, and it knows pretty much everything. But this also means that the AI is constantly ingesting, processing, and storing your data. And I want to be clear, even if the company is not being malicious, there's no real way around this. For an AI to be really, really good, it needs to collect all of the data that you're sending to it. Whatever they do with that data, it's going to come down to the company, but there's no way to get around a really good AI without training it on real up-to-date data, including the data that you're feeding into it. Which brings us to the two really big things about Apple's AI. One, it is not being constantly trained. Apple purchased an external set of data that they sourced. They didn't train the AI on the internal data they owned about their customers, and they trained it up to do specific things like I mentioned, correcting text, summarizing messages, etc. The AI isn't supposed to know everything about up-to-date events because that would require constantly training it, and they did not want to do that. And they also don't train it on your requests. When you send a request to Apple's AI, not only do they verifiably not store the data, but in most cases it's not even happening online. One huge thing with Apple's AI that not a lot of people understand is it's processing the requests locally. If you understand anything remotely about AI, this is absolutely insane. Now, there is a caveat here, and this is where things get really, really impressive. It can't process every single request that the AI comes through. Sometimes for things like doctoring images or really complex text requests, it just needs more processing power to handle that AI request. So it does something that Apple's gone crazy with and sends that data to an external server, but it does a whole bunch of things to anonymize it. It's not tied to your IP, it's only sending the exact data that it needs to make the request, and when it sends out to the server, again, I don't want to get too deep in this here, but the server basically spins up like a temporary operating system to process that data, and then gets hard deleted off the server. So it gets sent to the server to process the data. As soon as the data is processed, it's returned to your phone, and then it's deleted off the face of the planet. There's so many other precautions set up there with that data processing. For example, Apple created their own custom OS on the servers that process the data, so they can't be remotely accessed. In most cases, to access the server, you have to log into a shell, and then the devs can mess with the servers en masse. Apple made it so you have to physically plug in the servers to access them if they ever want to make any update. I'd go on about this for ages. I've done a lot of digging into it, but it's absolutely insane how many precautions Apple has taken to make sure that all the processing that can happen locally for AI requests happens on your device. Anything that doesn't happen locally, it's crazy how much it's anonymized, and I'm not asking you to trust me on this because Apple publishes a whole bunch of stuff, and it's also open to a whole bunch of external audits. If you want to criticize this, please dig into it first, because there is so much published about it from both Apple and third parties. But all that aside, if the AI is garbage, that doesn't matter. Who would want to use it? And this is where the integration with ChatGPT comes in. And I think they handled this perfectly. So for all of the things that you want to do on device and want to be hyper secure about, Apple's able to do that. But if you do want to make a request that does require something a little bit more nuanced, like, hey, what should I be doing in New York on December 25th, 2025 exactly? And this really complex request that requires access to web data and external data and all this stuff, you have the option to send that to ChatGPT, and you need to consent to that for that to happen. And again, I won't go too deep here, but this is all very published and very audited by third parties. Apple sends just the specific data needed out to ChatGPT, totally anonymized, it's not tied back to your IP or anything, to process externally in the same way it would be in Apple's external servers and then sent back to your phone. To be clear though, it's not nearly as secure as when it's sent out to Apple's servers. It's still hitting ChatGPT's servers, and that data that is hitting them is abided by ChatGPT's terms and conditions, but they're anonymizing it as much as humanly possible so that data that is getting there has no real way to tie back to you. Anyway, this video is going on for a really long time. I've been reading a lot about this, but I wanted to make sure I talk about it because there's a lot of people bringing it up now that iOS 18.1 is finally released and you could actually do this on your device. It's important to understand that the AI isn't meant to be this smart, all-knowing AI. It's meant to be super secure on device and meant to be localized to do specific tasks, and that's why that ChatGPT integration is there, and that ChatGPT integration is implemented thoughtfully as well. If you have any questions, please let me know. I absolutely love this stuff. I think it's insane. I've been reading up a lot about it. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.